And now, hopefully you should see my slides. So if you can't, I'm sure someone will tell me. My name's Louise, as Anjali said. I'm from MDX Works, and that is the university's careers and employability survey. So coming to university is really not just about having a great learning experience, but also about skill development and learning how to navigate the jobs market when you finish, so that your degree is actually really useful and you can move on to have a successful career in whichever field you choose. So we've given this area, skills for the future, a really, really broad title. It's the future. Can I gaze into my crystal ball and tell you exactly what the future will be like? No. And I'm not even sure the best of fortune tellers can tell you that. But what we can do is look at what's happened in the past, the developments that have been made, even during COVID, and the patterns that have formed to help you figure out what skills will best prepare you for your future career and how that will manifest itself. So really, before we talk about the future, it's actually a really great idea to have a look at where we are now. And it's quite a detailed graph I've put up, and I'm just going to talk through very briefly about what it shows us. It shows us where people are working at the moment, and that's during the pandemic, okay? So that's October to December 2020, where are people working in the UK? What industries? The most popular type of work that actually people are carrying out is linked to health and social care. So that's over 4.25 million people are employed in some capacity in health and social care. That is looking after others. You may or may not know that the NHS actually is one of the largest employers in the world. It's actually, in fact, the largest employer in Europe. And you can see that reflected in this graph. But actually it's closely followed by shopping, very different, but also very popular. So that's retail, wholesale, and car repairs, apparently. And over 3.75 million people are employed in that area. The least popular, and actually the smallest industry we have in the UK, is agriculture, forestry, fishing, and that's really very small, and that's around 331,000 people. So you will have already answered the question before, and you may have some idea of which of these industries you're going to end up in. Perhaps you've already worked in some of them. You've had a holiday job and thought you liked it, right? Or you've done work experience as part of your school or college. You might have already formed a picture in your mind, oh, this I quite like doing, this I want to do this at a later date, I'd love my career to involve this. Or maybe you're just thinking, I definitely don't want to do that. Hopefully you've spoken to friends and family over the years and you've talked about their jobs. You might even have asked them about what they do on a day-to-day basis and what skills they use. And if you haven't asked them, perhaps that's something you can do after the session, because that would be a really useful thing to do. So if you've talked to them about skills already, you might already have come up with what we might call the soft skills, right? An idea of the soft skills that you would be using in the workplace. And what are these? Well, traditionally, we talk about these being communication, right? So they're great. You need communication skills to talk to one another, to share ideas, to do lots of things. But you will notice that it's evolved since it began. Since the world of work, since people started working, it's really creative. They started off, if you think way back hundreds of years ago, just talking to one another. Then there came letters. Then we added in telephones, emails, social media platforms, video conferencing. So the type of communication skills we need is evolving. And that evolving isn't stopping now, that's going to evolve in the future as well. So there are big changes around there. Teamwork. We never ever work in isolation, right? Sometimes we work with people who are very similar to ourselves, doing the same kind of jobs. And sometimes we work with people who are very different. But actually working with people rather than in isolation is a really important skill to have. Literacy, all those things you've probably swatted up on in English around grammar, sentence structure, vocab are really important in putting ideas across and support the communication. Numeracy, being able to look at data, understand data, not being scared by numbers, also very, very important in a world where we use data a lot. Computing, well, I can see you have some, otherwise you wouldn't be logged in here onto this Zoom. So computing skills and developing and evolving computing skills. Problem solving, looking at something, looking at an issue that isn't going well, and seeing not just, okay, this is the solution, but thinking about what are the steps to get to those solutions. Those are so a really, really important skill. And thinking creatively, thinking of ideas outside of the box, things that others might not have thought of already, either with problem solving or in other areas where you might be working. So let's have a look a little bit more about those traditional skills and how you might use them in the workplace. So we're going to launch a poll, or I think Angela is going to launch a poll. And I want you to think about this scenario. So this poll will show you the skills that I've just talked through. And I want you to think about what skills, perhaps the top 3, are the most important here. So I'm going to read the scenario. Every month, I present a data report for colleagues who never seem to pay attention to it. I decided to take a different approach and introduce monthly themes to present the information in different ways. One way is using a Kahoot quiz. Another is a series of animated GIFs or GIFs, I never know. The next month, my colleague helps turn it into a amusing video. These changes make my presentations more compelling. Which do you think, out of the things that I've mentioned, are probably the top 3 skills that you'd use in this scenario? So have a go at the question on the poll. Can see that we're getting there. Wait just a couple of seconds more just for the last few of you to vote. Okay, so I can see, and I'm not sure if you can, that actually the top answers, and there were 3 top answers there, were communication. And actually were communication, problem solving, and creative thinking. So that's, you know, I can see where those have come from. So communication in presenting, doing the presentation, but actually communicating with the colleague as well might be what you were thinking. Problem solving, well, the problem is here that no one's paying attention to the presentation, and we found ways to solve that problem and try different things to solve that. So that is problem solving. And creative thinking. So not just thinking, oh, how can I present this differently, but what really creative and fun ideas can I do to do that? So there are 3 skills. We also had people think that it's teamwork, and I would agree, and computing, which I also would agree. So already you can see how multiple skills are used in the workplace. We're going to look to one more scenario and see what you think here. So the same idea, which do you think are the most important skills here? So this scenario is, and we'll launch a poll as well for this. A new employee joins today. I've been asked to help them settle in. I also need to show them how to carry out some key tasks, and I need to help them become a good team member and fit in with the company culture. So which do you think here are the most important? Maybe there's 3 most important, maybe there's not 3 this time. So you tell me, have a vote. Just wait a little bit more while you think it over. Brilliant, I can see the answers coming in. Wow, overwhelmingly, you think that it is teamwork and communication, which is brilliant, but actually people identified every single one of those skills as being important. So I can see why communication and teamwork, communicating how to carry out the tasks to the new employee, and teamwork, how to fit in and be a part of a team, are really important. Literacy, numeracy, computing could be part of the key tasks, which may be why people have identified them here. Problem solving and creative thinking, so problem solving around how to help them settle in, and creative thinking could also be there as well. So you can see that it's not just a list of skills, that those skills actually have a practical use. So we're gonna, and that's great that we can identify that those skills are important in the workplace and see how they work. And they've not just been important in the past, they're important at the current time with COVID. In play, we see communication, creative thinking, all coming to the fore. But we also see the workplace is changing. We can already see it. I talked about communication and how that's changed over the years. And there's changes coming in the future. We don't know yet what those changes are, but people have speculated. So let's have a look at what that speculation is. So speculation is that around 85% of the jobs that today's learners will be doing, so that's you guys, in 2030, may not have been invented yet. Wow. Humans, the idea that humans might compete with machines for jobs in the future. Again, same idea, robots could be stealing your jobs. Is that the case? So what about people creating the jobs of future, not simply training for them, and technology being really central for that? So that's taking that idea of machinery and robots and actually saying we would work together to do things and to work. So let's have a little bit more of a visual idea as to what this type of future could be. And I've got a video to show you. So I'm hoping it will play nicely. If it doesn't, please do let me know. Oh, no, I'm going to go back and try again.
Louise, we can't hear the sound. Sorry, Louise, the sound for us, it's not coming through.
The sound's not playing? All right, I'm gonna share again. I'm gonna cancel the share and share my screen again, and hopefully this time you'll be able to hear as well as see. So apologies for that. Let's share the screen. And we'll try and start that again.
It feels as if the world is moving at a faster rate than ever. Every day, smartphones are getting smarter, AI is becoming more intelligent, and our environment seems to be getting worse every year. If you were to travel 50 years into the future, what would the world look like? Would robots have taken over everything? Would we still be living on Earth? Would alien life finally be discovered? This is What If, and here's what would happen if you lived 50 years in the future. Look down at your phone and think how far technology has come in the last 10 years. Have you ever imagined what tech might look like in 50 years? What about your family and friends? What will happen to them? In 50 years' time, we might actually look back and laugh at how we used to have to hold our phones. How primitive. Instead, our smartphones will either be worn or implanted in us through contact lenses. Imagine being able to have your GPS embedded in your vision instead of having to look down at your phone. But although this all sounds nice, there will be problems too. If you don't want to fast forward yourself into the future because you're worried that your family might not be around, well, you can rest easy knowing that in 50 years, the average life expectancy will be about 80 to 90 years. That's over 10 years longer than it is today. Since the 1960s, our population percentages have always looked like a pyramid. But 50 years into the future, that pyramid will look more like a rectangle. This means that there will be an equal percentage of senior citizens to toddlers. This will have a huge effect on the economy. Grandma and Grandpa will be retiring much later. And when they do, those seniors' homes are going to be packed. With more people in the workforce, jobs will be harder to find. Just graduated school? Expect to live at home with mom and dad a bit longer, especially since AI is expected to be working over 800 million of our former jobs by 2030.
So you can see there, and hopefully you could hear there, some of disruption, possible technology advances that may come about or seem likely to come about. We've already seen changes that have come about because of the pandemic. So you will have seen for yourself how school or college has changed, how your family's working has altered. But how is this leaving us when we hopefully very soon and going through the roadmap get out of this pandemic? So we know at the moment that it's tough for graduates. It's tough for graduates leaving university. But actually, studies are starting to show that as soon as that kind of period of toughness is over, lots of people believe it's the younger generation, that's your generation, who will be playing an important role in helping business survive, thrive in a post-COVID world. So actually, there could be real positives to come out of this, particularly if you can navigate it successfully. We used to be able to work from home. In fact, it wasn't a brand new technology that meant we were able to work from home from the start of the pandemic. But what actually happened was there was a bit of a mindset change. People viewed remote work as something that was okay, right? Something that was a new normal, I'm sure you've heard that phrase, rather than an occasional opportunity. And actually the data backs this up. So in April, the Office of National Statistics showed that 46% of employed people in this country were working from home. And a further idea of this kind of mindset that this could be around to stay was that Microsoft said that it would allow staff to work from home in the future permanently, just as Facebook did, just as Twitter did, just as Fujitsu did. So that opens up a world of opportunities, because if you can work from home, actually you can work from anywhere. And could be anywhere exotic, you could travel, you could do things whilst you're working in a way that, couldn't before. We know that some industries have unfortunately been quite badly affected by the pandemic. And there are uncertainties around that. So the travel industry has been hugely affected. The entertainment industry, think about the arts and the theatre. But actually, that means there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of opportunity for tech to come in, other disruptions to come in. So this kind of uncertainty as some industries are forced to change. So how can you navigate this? How can you best prepare yourself? So we've talked a little bit about the traditional skills. Absolutely, those are important. Communication, teamwork, literacy, numeracy, computing, all those other things we had before, which you took the poll on. So those are undoubtedly important. What else do you need on top of those to help best prepare? The ability to thrive on change, okay? So you have to be comfortable around change, ready and prepared for it, be adaptable, proactive when you feel change coming, demonstrate flexibility, ambition, resilience, because with change comes problems that you haven't seen before, problems that you haven't encountered before, that you will need to move through and develop yourself through. Analytical skills. So what we have and what we are creating at the moment, you'll see, is we have created so many ways to use data, build data, use it within our problem solving, decision making, strategic thinking. So analytical skills are relied on heavily and will be hugely important in the future. Leadership. Who will lead the change, right? It's time to step up, push yourself into the leadership position. Those are the people that will best be prepared for the future. So to be motivated, have ambition, integrity, be open to learning, have inspiring storytelling, brilliant. Creativity, perseverance within creativity to ensure that creative thinking really, really pays off, and working together. One of the things that's often said about technology actually is that it brings people together in a way that you couldn't have before, in a way that we're all sitting in different places in the country or possibly even the world, and working together and sharing an experience. So we will have bigger and different communities in the future. So whether or not we can predict emerging technologies transforming, the workplace, transforming industries, is still a little bit uncertain. What we do know, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, can really interact with us and interact with different areas to make to reshape how we could live. So for instance, routine jobs such as those that may take place in manufacturing, transportation, storage, administration, are comfortably could be taken over by machines. We know, and there's actually a law called Moore's law, it says that processing power increases 10 times every 5 years, and that's massive, right? And that means actually computers can be better than us at a lot of things. They'll be faster and more accurate at certain tasks. But I think it's probably a mistake to assume that they will make us redundant, right? There are so many things that being human, we have over and above machines, and machines are well away from doing. Intuition, judgment, empathy, emotional intelligence. And these are things that robots are way away from doing. So what we're looking at more is human machines partnerships. How can we utilize and work with machines and work with technology to best develop ourselves? I've put on here as well the gig economy, and I don't know if you've worked or you know what the gig economy is. And it's really about being employed for tasks rather than being employed for a period of time. So you might have seen delivery drivers who are employed to get a meal from the restaurant and take it to the home, and they're employed for a job rather than being employed for an hour. Okay. So actually, maybe that will extend. Maybe people won't be looking for jobs, but jobs or tasks will be looking for people. Companies could set out tasks to be completed, use tech to match the task with the people that have the skills, and that could be anywhere in the world. We've already seen how things are much closer with technology. So you could, for instance, be designing and branding for a new games company in, I'm trying to think of some far-flung place, but I can't. But if you imagine the most far-flung place you can think of, you could be doing that in this country, sitting in your home. So there are these attributes alongside the traditional skills that we've talked about that will best prepare students. But really, what I wanted to say is really, and this is for you, the best way to predict the future is actually to invent it, to create your future, to be part of the change. How can you do that? Be curious about the world, be open-minded, open your eyes to see what's going on, to commit yourself to learning a bit more, and then learning even more. So what you pick up at school, okay, some of it can be replaced, some of it will be outdated, but what cannot be replaced is the ability to learn, and a good basis in the industry you want to work. So learning how to learn everywhere, and take up as many opportunities as you can throughout your life, and be prepared for the change. And that is the best advice that I can give you. So if you want to read more, if you want to understand more, take a picture of the screen now, make a note of the things that are up here, and pick it up. Learn and understand a bit more. And that I think is all from me. I hope you found that really useful. I'm going to keep that on screen until the next person screen shares, so you have a few more minutes to note down what you want. But I think it's back to Anjali.
Thank you so much for that, Louise. It was such an insightful and interesting presentation. And we actually have a question pop in the Q&A button. So do we fear technology taking over jobs? Isn't it a bad thing?
So I think, and if I go back to that idea of the human-machine partnership, that they might well take over some of the jobs that are there, and you can see that already in things that in advances in medicine and in advances in the way Amazon works, for example, or in supermarkets where you have the self-serving stuff. You can scan your own things out, but they very rarely have replaced jobs. They have enabled people to work in different ways. And that's the human machine partnership that we're moving more and more towards. So I don't fear it. I think it's quite an exciting development. And I think that humans won't be redundant. The things will change and develop, but we won't be redundant. It's not something to be feared.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for that, Louise. We also have another question. But I think, Sumit, if you could expand on it a little bit more, we'd be able to help answer it a little bit more clearly. Because at the moment, it's public health in a career scope. So if you've got, if you could expand on that question, that'd be really great. But I guess what we could talk about is, Louise, if you had any ideas of what public health could look like in the future and how that industry would look like.
So I think something around the pandemic has really impacted public health and how we support, I guess, nationally, different things within health, keeping the nation safe. And I think we won't know more about what we've learned until a little bit of time has settled and people have had time to analyze the things that we have learned and the lessons that have come from COVID. So public health will be, I think, a big topic in years to come, but we're not quite there yet in terms of understanding the lessons from COVID. So there is more to come in that sphere, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the pandemic has shown us how big an industry public health is and how important it is. Like you said before, Louise, it's one of the biggest industries in Europe, the NHS. Yep. So it's a very, very big industry, which is really great. If there's any more questions, feel free to pop it in the Q&A button. It's at the bottom of your screen, and we'll keep answering them as the session goes on.